US President Donald Trump's statement Monday night that Modi sought his help as a mediator to help resolve the Kashmir issue with Pakistan is the nearest thing in the Indian foreign policy playbook to a stab in the back. It doesn't matter if Trump was speaking the truth, making things up, or just plain confused. That the statement was made by a leader Narendra Modi has bet big on and came in the course of a joint press conference with Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan makes the stab seem even more painful. Of course, the official Indian denial came swiftly and predictably and will stem some of the political damage that the Bharatiya Janata Party would have otherwise had to confront domestically. But the opposition and media need to ask what this incident tells us about Modi's political judgment. He's been so trusting of Trump that he has brought Indian policies from Iran and Venezuela to Asia and the maritime domain swiftly in line with Washington's demands. But instead of benefiting in any way from this proximity to the US, what India has received is a taste of Trump's America First medicine. Let me quickly recap the events of the past day and then analyze what this tells us about the India-US relationship under Modi and where it might be headed. In Washington, Trump made an astonishing claim about meeting with Modi earlier this month.
So I was with Prime Minister Modi 2 weeks ago, and we talked about this subject. And he actually said, "Would you like to be a mediator or arbitrator?" I said, "Where?" He said, "Kashmir." Because this has been going on for many, many years.
At this point, Imran Khan chips in.
President, I can tell you that right now, you will have the prayers of over 1 billion people if you can mediate and resolve this issue.
It should be resolved.
To which Trump says,
We will speak to him or I'll speak to him and we'll see if we can do so.
Now, the Ministry of External Affairs promptly denied Trump's key claim last night, and External Affairs Minister Jaishankar repeated the denial in Parliament today.
I would like to categorically assure the House that no such request has been made by the Prime Minister to the US. I repeat, no such request was made by the Prime Minister to the US President.
Trump's reference to 2 weeks ago would mean his exchange with Modi happened at Osaka during the G20 summit, but Indian and American officials have told reporters they have no record of Kashmir figuring in the Trump-Modi meeting which took place there. So this leaves us with only 4 possibilities. First, that Trump is deliberately lying. Second, that he is a fantasist who plucked the supposed details of his conversation with Modi out of thin air. Third, that there was some pretty radical miscommunication between Trump and Modi in Osaka, or perhaps at some other time when they met. And fourth, that the Indian side is not telling the truth. Of these options, I'm inclined to rule out the fourth, because opposition to big power mediation is not just an article of faith for the Indian establishment, but a practical necessity of realpolitik too. No matter how much they rail against the Lutyens' consensus, it is hard to imagine Modi and his advisors deluding themselves into believing any good could come out of abandoning a long-standing position and involving Trump in Kashmir. That still leaves 3 options. Miscommunication is the most benign, but in turn throws a question mark over the effectiveness and even wisdom of Modi's pull-asides and hugs at world forums. The US has now put out a short statement by Assistant Secretary of State Alice G. Wells that while Kashmir is a bilateral issue for both parties to discuss, the Trump administration welcomes Pakistan and India sitting down, and the United States stands ready to assist. With this statement, presumably, both the State Department and the MEA hope to contain the fallout that Trump's remarks have led to, but things are not so simple. While Trump can walk away pretty much unscathed, I think Modi and his advisors really need to do a little introspection here. Because while the whole world realized early on that the US under Trump was not a trustworthy partner, Modi willfully led India into an even tighter embrace with Washington. And there is no telling what the eventual price India has to pay. If a world leader whom Modi has so assiduously appeased can be utterly indifferent to India's well-known position on Kashmir, what does that tell us about Modi's sense of judgment? To be fair, Modi began the process of doubling down on the strategic partnership with the US almost as soon as he became Prime Minister, when Barack Obama was President. Signing the Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement in August 2016 meant Modi was allowing India to be used as a springboard for the use of US military power in the region. Now, those were the heady days of the Asia pivot, when the US's Cold War with China first began to take shape, and Modi and his advisors naively thought India could buy security by bandwagoning with the US. In the past 2.5 years, as Washington's closest allies have grown wary of the way the US administration has upended key US policies on Iran, climate change and trade, Modi and Japan's Shinzo Abe are perhaps the only major world leaders still willing to gamble on Trump. Even so, Japan has actively sought to de-escalate tensions between the US and Iran, while India is happy to watch the slow slide to conflict from the sidelines. Undeterred by mounting evidence of the US under Trump playing a destabilizing role in West Asia, Modi has now gone ahead and signed the Communications Compatibility and Security, or COMCASA, agreement, further committing the Indian military to a closer relationship with the Pentagon. The fundamental mistake Modi and his advisors have made is to assume personal chemistry can somehow generate positive results for India, even when the underlying factors indicate otherwise. Worse, the pursuit of goals has also often been wrong-headed. In Modi 1.0, for example, S. Jaishankar, who was then Foreign Secretary, engineered a disastrous one-on-one meeting between Modi and Xi Jinping of China in the hope that Beijing would back India's bid to become a member of the Nuclear Suppliers Group. Despite the fact that quick NSG membership would have been of little use to India at that time, it was made a national priority, presumably for the purpose of domestic political signaling. The end result: years of nuclear diplomacy aimed at establishing India as a responsible player and Pakistan as an outlier got undone as Beijing used the opening to push for parity between Delhi and Islamabad on the question of NSG membership. The speedy listing of Masood Azhar as a terrorist on a UN list was a similar chimera for which Modi 1.0 expended a lot of diplomatic capital. In the end, Trump delivered this meaningless accomplishment for Modi, but clearly believed he had thus acquired leeway to push the envelope on mediation. The first inkling of this came during the election campaign itself, when Trump spoke about the imminent release of Abhinandan Varthaman, the Indian Air Force pilot shot down over Pakistan. Now, the second mistake the Modi government is making is in not appreciating how all the other parts of the Trump strategy that it has gone along with, the pressure on Iran, heightened tension with Russia, and an all-out Cold War with China, have ended up actually strengthening Pakistan's hands in the region. Trump, who was singing a different tune about Pakistan 2 years ago, now realizes his plans for Iran and Afghanistan require stability on the Washington-Islamabad axis. And you just have to look at a map of Afghanistan to understand why this is the case. This is precisely the context of Imran Khan's visit to the White House, and Trump's remarks on mediation with India are clearly a product of this process that we have been complicit in assisting. So where does this leave us now? The opposition will no doubt try and put the BJP on the mat, but the government has stoutly denied Trump's claim that Modi requested mediation, and that will likely put an end to the controversy. But when the dust settles, Prime Minister Modi and his advisors really need to go back to the drawing board. The fact is, it was a monumental blunder to put so many eggs in the US basket and neglect key relationships with Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran. Above all, the absence of a coherent, rational policy towards Pakistan has created a vacuum that is not in India's interest. Modi is fortunate to have been served a foreign policy wake-up call so early in his second tenure. He must now make the most of it. Thank you for watching, and do subscribe to the Wires channel if you haven't done so already.